Most founders don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they can't afford to do what they already know. You've been to the events, joined the masterminds, filled the notebooks. You walked out motivated, certain that this was the moment everything would change. But when you got home and looked at your calendar and your bank account, you realized something. You have ideas without infrastructure and strategies without funding. That space between what you know and what you can execute is what I like to call the implementation gap. According to the Harvard Business Review, over 70% of strategic initiatives in small and mid-sized companies fail. And the top two reasons are lack of resources and lack of follow-through capacity. It's not that leaders aren't smart, it's that the execution costs money and time they don't have. Let's put a face on this. A consulting firm we worked with last year did $2.2 million in revenue, healthy margins, loyal clients. The owner attended 3 major business programs, each promising systems, sales training, and scalability. He came back energized. But when it was time to implement, he realized he needed 2 hires, a new CRM, and marketing automations. That's about $230,000 in upfront cost. He had $35,000 available. So he delayed, patched things manually, and burned another year running in circles. He didn't fail the program. He just never funded the implementation. That's the reality for most founders sitting around the 7-figure mark. They're too big to stay lean and too small to attract institutional investors. They're in what I call the frozen middle, profitable but cash poor, educated but undercapitalized. If that's you, I want you to break this pattern right now. Start by identifying your true cost of execution. Grab a sheet of paper and list everything you know needs to happen in the next 12 months to double your business. Every hire, every system, every marketing initiative. Write an estimated cost beside each one. Add it up. That's your implementation budget. Now look at how much free cash or credit you actually have for growth. Subtract that from your total. What's left is your capital gap. That's the number that'll quietly decide whether you'll scale or stall. Most founders never calculate it. They just feel it. That constant pressure of too many ideas and not enough resources. But once you can quantify it, you can plan around it. Let's talk numbers for a moment. According to the Small Business Administration, the average U.S. service business under $5 million in revenue reinvests only 9% of annual sales into growth initiatives. For a $2 million company, that's $180,000. But implementing even a modest scaling plan, team expansion, marketing, and tech typically costs $300,000 to $400,000. Didn't think that, did you? That shortfall is the implementation gap in black and white. So what do most founders do? They go back to working harder. They take another client instead of building capacity. They become their own capital strategy, trading time for money yet again. If you've ever said, I know what to do, I just can't seem to get to it, you're describing a capital constraint, not a discipline issue. There's a dangerous myth in entrepreneurship that hustle replaces funding. But hustle without margin is just glorified exhaustion. Capital gives your hustle direction. Here's another perspective. In 2024, venture and private investors poured more than $400 billion into U.S. companies. Less than 1% of that reached traditional service businesses. Why? Because those businesses rarely show up prepared to receive it. Their books aren't clean, their reporting isn't standardized, and their growth plan isn't packaged in investor language. Accelerators, coaching programs, and masterminds give you strategy vocabulary, but investors speak capital structure. If you can translate your business into investor terms, risk, return, and scalability, you unlock funding that most founders never access. So how do you bridge the gap? Step 1, operational clarity. Investors back repeatable systems, not heroic founders. If everything depends on you, you're not fundable. Start documenting processes and tracking metrics so growth looks predictable. Number 2, financial transparency. you need clear, GAAP-aligned financials for at least 2 years. If you don't understand GAAP, you need a CPA. Clean books are your credibility. Hire a fractional CFO or controller even before you think you need one. Last step, capital readiness. Decide what types of funding matches your goals: revenue-based financing, crowdfunding under Regulation CF, or private investor rounds under Regulation D. Each option has trade-offs, but all three move faster than banks. When founders hear capital raise, they picture Wall Street paperwork and 6-month timelines. The truth is, you could prepare a compliant crowdfunding raise in 60 to 90 days if your financials and story are in order. Platforms like WeFunder and Start Engine saw record activity last year, and service businesses are now part of that wave. Let's bring this closer to home with a quick story. A regional HVAC company we advise have been trying to scale from $3 to $5 million for 2 years. They've invested in coaching, rebranded, built a new website, but cash flow never caught up. We helped them raise $450,000 through a Regulation CF campaign backed by local customers. They used it to buy inventory of head of seasons and hire 2 new technicians. Within 10 months, revenue jumped 31% and profit margins improved because they started renting equipment. Same strategy, different capitalization. That's the essence of the implementation gap. Money is the missing link between theory and traction. Let's talk about what happens when you bridge it. When capital arrives, your calendar changes. You delegate instead of delay. You move projects forward simultaneously instead of sequentially. You stop choosing between sales and operations and start optimizing both. It's not about greed, it's about bandwidth. Founders who raise strategically don't work less. They work on higher value problems. They stop firefighting and start forecasting. Now, a word of caution. Capital amplifies whatever exists. If your systems are chaotic, funding magnifies that chaos. If your operations are solid, funding multiplies efficiency. So before you raise, stabilize. Get your infrastructure tight, your data consistent, your leadership aligned. Then raise. And raise with a purpose. When you bring in capital, build a spending plan the same way an investor would. Every dollar should serve one of 3 goals: increase revenue, improve margins, or reduce risk. Anything else is vanity. Here's a helpful ratio. For every new dollar of capital, aim to generate at least $2 in new gross revenue within 18 months. If you can model that with reasonable confidence, you're ready. Let's circle back to the psychology behind the implementation gap. Many founders cling to the idea that if I just push harder, I'll break through. I hear it all the time. But scaling isn't about willpower. It's about resource power. You're not lazy. You're underfunded. And acknowledging that isn't weakness, it's leadership. Leadership means facing the math instead of the myth. If you've been in business 5, 10, maybe even 15 years, and you're still hitting the same ceiling, this is your signal. Stop looking for another playbook. Start building a funding plan. Audit your numbers. Identify your capital gap. Decide the right funding vehicle for your business model. Then execute the strategies you already know work. At Legacy Wealth Capital Group, that's what we specialize in, helping established service businesses fund the implementation of what they've already learned. No fluff, no theory, just capitalization and structure. Because in business, information isn't power. Implementation is power. And implementation requires capital. So the next time you think about signing up for another course or mastermind, pause for a second. Ask yourself, have I funded the last plan I learned? If the answer is no, you already know where to start. That's how you move from educated to executed. And that's how you scale.